And let's bring you more now on that breaking news this hour that the best-selling writer Barbara Taylor Bradford has died at the age of 91. Her best-known work was A Woman of Substance, which was published in 1979 and later turned into a successful TV series. She was awarded an OBE in 2007 for her services to literature. We're joined now by her publisher, Lynne Drew. Lynne, good to talk to you today, and my condolences, because by all accounts, from all those who knew her, she was quite a character.
She really was. I mean, Barbara was absolutely unforgettable from the first moment you met her. Great big beaming smile, enormous amounts of warmth, enormous amounts of charisma, and a mind like a steel trap. She could remember anecdotes from her Fleet Street days, stories from childhood, and also what you were wearing the last time you met. She was just a force of nature, and everybody she met, everybody at HarperCollins, from people who worked in the warehouse to people who worked on the reception desk, knew her and she knew them.
And her books, of course, meant that her readers felt that they knew her as well. You alluded to her Fleet Street days. She started off as a typist at the Yorkshire Post, I think, the Yorkshire Evening Post. So sort of a humble start, a girl from Leeds, starts off as a journalist, becomes this huge success. She was a natural storyteller, wasn't she?
She really was. I mean, she was reading or having read to her the novels of the Brontes and Dickens at a very, very young age. By her own account, she was quite a precocious reader and quite a serious child, but also incredibly determined. And she flew in the face of her parents' disapproval to get a job in the typing pool at the age of 15. Her mother really wanted her to stay on at school, but she wanted to become a journalist. And she worked in the typing pool, but she started to slip stories into the in tray of the sub-editor. And that was the way that she really got her first break as a journalist. She was working alongside characters like Keith Waterhouse, Peter O'Toole, and she became the paper's first women's editor. So an extraordinary career, an extraordinary story before she even began writing novels.
And when it came to the novels themselves, I mean, as a publisher, she was obviously an absolute gift for you. What was the secret to the success of her novels? Because she churned out 40 in her life, the last one published just last year.
Yeah, she was so hardworking. I mean, her extraordinary determination, as referenced in her desire to become a journalist, played a huge part. But underneath it all, she was passionately interested in people. She was curious, she was fascinated, she was engaged with every single person she met. And she really believed, as Graham Greene said, that character is plot. So she knew that her characters had to be the heart of any book. And when you couple that with her passion for history and non-fiction, she was a massive fan of Winston Churchill. She read huge amounts of political history and just an incredibly wide reader. So she immersed herself in research, in stories, and believed, above all, that human nature never changes. So she was happy to write about Victorian characters, Edwardian characters, or present day, because we're all ultimately the same hearts beat, the same passions, betrayals, ambitions govern us all.
And there was something of herself, clearly, in A Woman of Substance, wasn't there? You know, a plucky northern lass who works hard and grafts her way to the top, despite the odds.
So much of that. And she poured her love for Yorkshire and her love for its landscape and its wild beauty into that book. She was living in America at the time, and she's spoken of how she felt the pull of home and the pull of those moors and that landscape. And she set nearly all of her books, at least partially, in England or in the UK, because it always pulled her home. But yeah, she had already achieved success when she began writing A Woman of Substance. And it is such an extraordinary thing that story spoke to her so strongly. And she wrote a book, really, with A Woman of Substance that bucked the trend. That it's not a romance. It's not a romantic happy ending. It's a great big epic sweeping novel of love, courage and ambition, and how one woman not only drives herself to create success and overcome her poverty, but also to take vengeance on those who wronged her. So it remains an absolutely unputdownable, brilliant book.
And she loved her success, didn't she? She wasn't somebody who sort of tucked herself away in a drafty garret. She spent her money, she had a lovely marriage, and she had a lovely life.
Yes, she did. She loved every minute of her life. And, you know, the whole time I knew her, it didn't matter that she could have been entertaining politicians. She was friendly with the Bushes and the Blairs. She could have been entertaining writers and media in New York. She was always the same down-to-earth Yorkshire woman at heart. And she loved every moment of her life. She loved coming back to the UK to promote her books. She always felt English at heart. She stayed at the Dorchester. She greeted everybody there with her enormous smile. And as I've said, I mean, she was just fascinated by people's stories, and she could remember them all, and she poured them into her books. And as we were publishing one book, she would be talking to me about the plot of the next and working out what the characters would do to get themselves in and out of their plot intricacies. And even beyond that, she'd be thinking, what will I do after that? She adored the research. She adored pouring herself into, you know, reading the history books of the time.
A remarkable woman.
She really was.
She really was. Lynne, we're going to have to leave it there because we're out of time. But Lynne Drew from HarperCollins, lovely to hear your memories of Barbara Taylor Bradford. Thank you.
Okay.
Business Live is coming up next with Darren McCaffrey.